Hey guys, in this episode, Lorenzo and I are studying a DTC brand called Allbirds, and they sell shoes, but they also sell different types of apparel. And you're going to learn three important things in this episode. The first thing you're going to learn is how to address anxiety around sizing, shoe sizing, or any kind of clothes sizing. Because if someone is buying a brand for the very first time, there's very high degrees of anxiety. The second thing we're going to talk about is how to use priming to kind of focus in on one of the core attributes for our core attributes of our sales pitch, because not everything in your sales pitch is equally important. And then the third idea is something that we were kind of playing around with, and we've never really actually seen this on an e-commerce site. We're using gamification on the product page. So watch the episode to see how we're using gamification. And I would just say that, subscribe to the show, because that way you can get notified when new episodes come out. Enjoy this show and do write comments for us. Hey guys, we are back with yet another episode. And in this episode, we are but discussing a darling brand of the direct-to-consumer space called Allbirds. And the first thing I'll mention over here is that Lorenzo did lots of homework on, how big they are and stuff like that. And Lorenzo, if I'm not mistaken, 219 million in sales, annual sales.
Yeah, in 2020.
In 2020.
Obviously, COVID had an impact there, probably 2021. I haven't checked 2021 sales yet, but COVID probably had an impact on them.
Yes, and I don't. They do have an expanded product line now, but I would say that this item, the wool runners, probably are their bestseller, just because it was the first product they came out with, and just based on the number of review counts, they have a lot of reviews on this page. So we focused in on this page, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give you just a walkthrough of the layout of the page. So if you notice on the right hand side, that's their mobile page. We are looking at the mobile page because that's where most of the people are seeing the page. It says men's wool runners. So right there on the top, they're making it very clear it's for men. There's also a nice breadcrumb above that so you can kind of navigate out of that. They also say everyday sneakers. So it's so it's interesting actually in a way if you think about it, because they're calling the categories everyday sneakers. And we're not going to get into this right now, but it says everyday sneakers, but actually they call it a runner. So who knows what that is. There's also the price point of $110 on the right-hand side. Lorenzo made a very good observation where he noticed that actually it's not as prominent. It's prominent at the top of the page, but it's actually typically for e-commerce, it's mentioned lower on the page as well.
Yeah.
So they didn't seem to do that here. And then they have this, they show this one color, and they actually have a lot more colors. And in fact, I would say that this color is kind of like not super inspiring. And so they have lots of brighter colors. And so that was one thing we noticed. And then over here, they allow you to select by sex, male and female. So that's as important as well. In our analysis, we focus on just the men's shoe. And if you scroll down just a little bit, Lorenzo, they have sizes. Let's look at the sizes. They don't have any half sizes, as you'll notice. My size is 10.5, but they do have, they've addressed that concern right below that, where they say this style is available in whole sizes only. If you are in between sizes, we recommend you move one size up. So they're busting that objection up front. Select sizes marked as is kind of grayed out because you need to first select your size. And then below that, they're highlighting the key attributes of the shoe, and they've highlighted three things: warm and cozy, merino wool runners, cushioned midsole. And again, I don't know what a midsole is, so I think there might be some room for some kind of visual cues. And then they talk about the fact that it's machine washable, which I actually have never washed my shoes before. So it's not even a benefit I was thinking about, but it's certainly a benefit, I guess, that they want to highlight. And then below that, they're talking about details. And then they say best for walking, cooler weather, and everyday wear. Again, they don't mention the word running anywhere. So I'm only noticing all of this right now. But I think that there is a little bit of inconsistency with the language. But again, that's all fine. Then they talk about this idea of versatile design, and then they say where it's made, and it says South Korea, and it says learn more about our operations. And if you click on that link, we actually are, just very quickly, they actually have some really, really good content around their supply chain. And I thought it was quite interesting. And Lorenzo, if you just scroll down just a little bit on this page, you'll see that they actually like really are talking about like really in great detail. It's not just a small line. They have a code of conduct. Just keep on scrolling down further, please. I just want to show people the factory audits and evaluations. So it seems like they're really concerned about their supply chain, and probably their customers care about it as well. And then over here, they also have a call to action. Anyway, so as you can see, there's a call to action, stay in the loop, which I think is a kind of clever idea as well. Now, if you just go back to the previous page, Lorenzo, bottom line is that, and there are some usability issues as well, but we are not going to discuss any of that. But the point here is that they are clearly emphasizing these attributes. And then the next tab is sustainability. If you open that real quick as well, that again is talking about the being carbon neutral and carbon offsetting. And in fact, they have 3 separate links. Don't have to click on it, but they have 3 separate links that take you to 3 separate pages where they are actually talking about this in great detail. One of the things that we are doing as CROs is we are actually trying to understand what the client is trying to draw, what the brand is drawing attention to, because that tells us that these are important attributes to the client. So for example, I would never go to the client and say, let's remove sustainability content on this page. I have an idea to reduce the height of the page. That will be rejected because it's very obvious that sustainability is very important to them. They've got so much content around it. And then below that, they talk about sustainable materials and just standard stuff. And then below that, they talk about care guide. If you just open that real quick, Lorenzo, as well, they're just talking about the fact that you can machine wash them. And then below that, they're talking about shipping and returns. And then below that, they are talking about two other types of shoes that you can look at. And if you scroll further, they're showing attributes now, individual attributes of the shoe: super fine and cozy, which is their wool upper. If you come down further, there is sweet on the planet. So again, that they're talking about the sole, the sole of the shoe, which is made of, that part, the sole of the shoe, which is made of something called sweet foam, which is a material they're making from sugarcane, and it's sustainable. Again, this is evidence that the sustainability message is kind of coming across quite a bit. In fact, if you even look at the next section, which is the castor bean insole, this also they're emphasizing the fact that they're not using they're using castor bean oil, which emits less carbon than petroleum-based foam. It's very obvious as you're reading this copy that this environmental messaging is central to their brand. And then below that, even their laces are recycled. So all of their features they're talking about in the context of sustainability. And then finally, they talk about the carbon footprint. So it's very, very clear to me that that's their focus. And then over here, they have men's runners, they have reviews, they have 2,600 reviews. They are showing visually, can you scroll up just a little bit, Lorenzo? They're showing visually over here that the size runs slightly small. So again, they had mentioned this on the top of the page. And so this is the layout of the page. Have I covered everything?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Let's get into the ideas.
All right, let's do it.
So I'll talk my first idea. So let's look at the page on the top. So actually, I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. So because I want to show the analytics data. Yeah. So first of all, what I noticed is that in the C size chart, when clicking on it, there's this model that appears, and actually they're doing a super good job at tracking click on that element. Now, what I would do if I had access to their analytics data, I would create a segment. Well, I would actually look at the events report to see how many people are actually clicking on that element on a C size chart, because obviously, buying shoes online is always tricky when it comes to sizing. So I would definitely try to understand a little bit more about that behavior. Then I would create same segment, how many people are actually clicking on that, and then add the product to the cart, just because I want to understand how that size chart is doing a good job at pushing people to add the product to the cart. And then finally, I would want to understand what the conversion rate of people that click on C size chart is versus those that don't click on it. Because again, my hypothesis here, total speculation, obviously, because I don't have access to the data, is that if you look at the size chart, you understand what shoes you have, you're more likely to buy. So the conversion rate is probably higher. Now, opening up the chart here, what I notice is that they have men's shoes chart, size chart, and women's shoes chart. But the thing is that here we are in the men's category. So it doesn't really make sense to have both genders in the same size chart. So what I would do is I would kill the women's size chart and just keep the men's one in the men's section. And obviously I would kill the men's size chart in the women's section and keep the women's section.
Yeah, Lorenzo, if you open up the size chart again real quick, I'll tell you another little slight mistake that they're making. So Lorenzo and I are of the opinion that every word, every idea is a tax, really. So if you look at the description, it says all birds fit true to size for most customers. If you have wide feet, blah, 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 we suggest you size up for this, except for tree runner. So they're talking about a shoe that we're not on that tree runner product page, right? So this is unnecessary tax that I'm paying. And I have to do mental math to say that, oh, no, I can ignore this because I'm looking at the Merino runner. But some people would say, oh, maybe this is a tree runner. I don't know, and so it's confusing.
Yeah, that's I haven't even thought about that. That's very clever. Now, so let's say that my hypothesis is that C size chart doesn't get a lot of clicks and love just because it's quite small. So what I would do I would probably make it a little bit bigger. But another idea I had is, and I'm gonna open up my my document here, is what if, because the size of that size chart is small, what I would do instead, I would add another selector and I would call it select size conversion, where people are actually going to click on whatever the country or size measurement that they have. So US, Europe, UK in centimeters, which exactly is the list of all the different options that it have in this size chart. So when clicking on it, let's say you're European and you're aware of European number, you just click on it and the size select changes. Instead of from 8 to 14, it changes from 40 to 47. Just because people are aware of, and the funny thing is that each number is actually corresponds to the different numbers. So what I would do is actually they click on EU and then they have 40, 41 and the list of all the other numbers.
And yeah, that's great. That's great. That's
Go
awesome.
ahead.
I was just thinking another idea I just had. If you just scroll back to that size chart, Lorenzo. So my thought is that, what if the sizes itself were clickable? And so if you select US 8, it closes the site. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but closes the site chart and selects size 8 for you, but.
I see. So they select the size straight from the model, basically.
Yeah.
Interesting. Then the other thing I have here, so basically another idea I had going back to the screen is, let's say that maybe with the idea I just described, they don't have a lot of issue with sizing, but if they continue having issues with sizing because people don't know what size to actually choose, what I would do is there's a company called Fit Analytics that basically creates a size recommendation. It's almost like a wizard where the user can input a bunch of data, and based on the data that the user inputs, they get a recommended size for the all birds. So I'm actually going to show you an example of a company that does that, which is Asus. So I want to show you this app in action. So if I go here, there's this sizing help section. And when clicking on it, start again, sorry, because I already tried it, that's why. When clicking on it, there's a bunch of like questions that they're asking to your users. And it's interesting because now they recommend you what size to pick based on already type of shoes that you already own. So for example, let's say I own a bunch of Nike. So I select Nike and I can pick like the type of like, let's say I have a bunch of like tennis shoes from Nike. I can actually select the model and then let's say, oh, I have X number for that model of Nike. How wide are your feet, blah, blah. And then they give me well, now there's not a matching shoes, but the point is that they're going to give a recommendation of what number is based on a shoes that I already own, which I thought it was a very, very clever.
I agree.
Finally, the last thought I had here is, let's say that people are still skeptical around the fact that what if I get the wrong size? So what I noticed is that below the call to action, they have this copy: free shipping on orders over 50, free returns. But this copy free return is quite hidden. One thing that I noticed is also that when I looked at Ahref, which is a tool that tells you the number of keywords, the actual traffic of specific keywords, about 4,200 people search for this keyword, all birds return policy. And we don't know if, the people that search for that keyword are people that already bought or not. So what I would do to kind of like lower the objection of people that might not know the size, because it's something that people are looking for, as data shows, what I would do is I would actually make this free returns section more prominent. And, I would probably like use kind of like a visual. And I would add, it's like, see more details so people can click on it, and a model would appear showing a little bit more details about the free returns, the fact that they have 30 days, blah, blah. That's all I got for my first idea, Rishi.
I love it. I'll mention just two things here. First of all, Lorenzo, this is it. It's such a learning opportunity for me as well, because your idea of seeing what kind of tracking is being done on the page itself, that's such a powerful hack. Because if that tracking is available, then you can get all this granularity of data, but it also is a signal for like that if you see that tracking is not there, it actually tells you that maybe they're not paying enough attention to this page.
Exactly.
So it's a signal that there's an upside potential. And so I really
and if it's there, I wonder, even if it's there, I wonder if they're paying attention to it, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's there, doesn't mean that they're looking at that data.
No, absolutely right. That's true. So I think that just the discipline of actually seeing what tracking is there is such an important practice, which I've never done before. So that's very useful. The thing I should also say, guys, is that do subscribe to the channel. I want to keep on reminding us to subscribe, because what happens is that the way the ranking system is for YouTube and is that we might publish an episode, but if you're not subscribed, you'll never see it. And in fact, I would say that there's also a bell icon, and I don't know where it is, but you can figure it out. If you click on that, it'll show you every episode. So just subscribe, because without subscriptions, we are just talking to ourselves. And also we would encourage you we get a lot of comments, but we want you guys, especially someone, and this is a message to someone who's not written a comment. I want you to go over the hesitation of writing a comment. Writing a comment is very hard, but go over the hesitation and write a comment for us. We love to see comments from people that are absolutely new, and we want to really address and personalize the show to your interest. In fact, we just got an email yesterday asking us to do an episode on supplements, which we will, but we don't know that if you don't say it, right? Yep. And email is not the best way. If you write a comment, then we know that then we can respond to it right away. So
yeah, also, if you have experience working with companies that sell like shoes, for example, I would love to hear some like interesting tests that you ran, some A/B tests that you ran, and also like some insights that you discovered through research or through user testing, whatever. Because I would love to. I think it's gonna help other people that might be have to do some testing around shoes.
And here's what I would also say is that if you know someone who, or any business, could be a client, could be a former client, could be a friend who's working for a shoe brand, send them this episode. I think we're going to be sharing 6 ideas in this episode, and I'm positive at least 1 or 2 of them will directly apply to those brands. And, you know, I think we want to spread these ideas. Okay. So all of that said, I'm going to now talk about my concept. So what happened was that when I was analyzing the page, I wanted to, as I talked about the fact that there is a focus on sustainability and all of that good stuff, I was really surprised by my own feelings. Because when I first started studying the page, I looked at the page, and as any consumer, I looked at the photos first, and I was like, oh, these are fine. I don't like the black color, and and then I noticed there were other colors as well. But as I started reading the description and reading about their view on sustainability and their view on making sure that their manufacturers who are in Vietnam and China, different parts of the world, are using the same protocols for health and for quality, I started getting really sucked into their story. And this is actually true for almost all brands. If you go to your analytics and if you create a segment of people that were on your product page for 45 seconds versus people who were there on your product page for like 7 minutes or 4 minutes, you will notice that the probability of conversion is astronomically higher for people that spend 4 minutes or 7 minutes. And this makes logical sense, right? Like, for example, someone who's watching our episode video all the way through is way more committed than someone who's watching the first 15 minutes. So this is true for any consumer brand. So I thought to myself that, okay, they have really good content. Not all brands have great content. These guys have really, really good content. And it's not content you can just put together. They actually have got the supply chain mapped out. So for me as a marketer, the challenge is not how do we come up with something that consumers care about. The challenge for me was, how do I make sure that out of 100 people that come to my page right now, maybe 2 or 3 people are fully absorbing my message. What if I could increase that from 3 to 6 or 7? What effect would that have on conversion rates? So that became my focus. And so based on that, I came up with a concept, and it's a somewhat radical concept. So what we have done, Lorenzo, if you just scroll right all the way to the top of the page, so what we have done is we have come up with a concept which is like very jarring, but it's designed to like really, really draw the user's attention. So Lorenzo, if you on my copy in my document, we scroll down to page 2. Okay, so what we did was anything below the add to cart. So below the add to cart, we've actually added a frosted glass look. So there's something behind it, but you actually can't get to it. And we've locked the page, which means you can't even scroll beyond this point. So literally for the user, like talk about bad usability. This is the definition of bad usability. We are actually hiding all the content and we are preventing the user from scrolling up and down on the page. So now if you scroll, Lorenzo, to the next page, I'll actually show you, lower. I'll show you the copy that we added. So the copy is going to say effectively this: we don't mean to be dramatic, but something needs to be said. Companies that manufacture must be held accountable for their impact on the planet. We'd like to share 4 core details about these woolen runners. So again, just talking about, here are the 4 things I want to talk about. And then below that, it says, as a responsible buyer. So again, I'm making the reader feel good about themselves. As a responsible buyer who also expects peak performance from your gear, we hope you'll give us 4 minutes of your time today. So the thing is that what I'm doing is I'm actually trying to use psychological tricks for the user to commit to spending those 4 minutes, because I know that if they spend 4 minutes reading my content, there is statistically a higher likelihood that they'll really resonate with my message and buy. And then below that, there's a button that says, let's do this. Again, I'm talking, it's almost like the buyer is saying that to themselves, right? Let's do this. I also made a little crude mock-up. So yeah, if you scroll. So this is how it's going to look like visually. I'm not a graphic designer, so obviously we'll have a designer make it look better. But this is the basic idea. And when you click on let's do it, then the frosted glass and the text, everything will disappear and the whole page will be exposed. And the idea is that the user will theoretically spend more time and actually read more content. If you can scroll a little lower, I have come up with like two versions of this concept. One is like a little more complicated concept and more expensive and difficult to code. What I've done is, and the image is not high quality, but I've added these small little visual tabs. One says shoe components, the next one says sustainability, third one says manufacturing, the fourth one says performance, because those are four attributes that I want the reader to read about. And the idea is we are trying to do some gamification, because as they go through the content, as they go through the shoe components content, it actually might add, for example, a little checkbox. So this is like a floating element. It might add a little checkbox to just signify that that content has been consumed fully. And so the user now says, okay, I have 3 more pieces to read. And maybe through this, the hope is that through this gamification mechanism, we're going to get more of them to read the content. Hypothesis is that if they read the content, then they will convert. Now, the thing is that you might look at this and say, Rishi, I work for a smaller brand. This is too complicated to do. I'm not going to be able to get a developer to set this up. So come up with the MVP version of this idea. The MVP version is that frosted glass look. You don't even have to use any of this floating element. You can just, that priming statement itself will get you bulk of the way. So if you just scroll down a little bit more, let me see. So by the way, my first idea is going to be a little long because I'm talking about a bunch of things, but I want to also talk about tracking around this idea. Because if the hypothesis is that content consumption is directly corresponding to conversion rates, which I can guarantee you it is, the first thing we have to do is we have to actually come up with how much of our content is currently being consumed before running this experiment. And so then we have to apply some content consumption markers. This is a little more technical, but it's not super technical. So the first thing what I've done is, just to give you an example, within the sustainability section, let's say we said sustainability content was really important to us. How would I know in the control or in the version of the page that is live right now that sustainability content was being read? The way I would know it is that currently, Lorenzo, if you just open the page real quick, on the right-hand tab, yeah, scroll down to sustainability, it's actually minimized, collapsed by default. So that means the user actually has to click on it. So the click on sustainability is a signal that the person is at least interested in that content and is potentially consuming that content. They also have 3 links within this content: high impact carbon projects, carbon footprint labeling, and our commitments. Those are the 3 links. I would set a rule that says if 2 out of 3 of those links are clicked, then that is again a further signal to me that the sustainability content has been consumed. So I would create markers like this to kind of get a baseline reading. And then when I run the experiment, I would see, have these baseline readings improved? Because if they have, then that's a signal that the priming statement actually got people to spend more time. And then of course, I would also then triangulate it around transactions, because ultimately that's the primary conversion goal. Lorenzo, if you just scroll down further, I'll just see if there's anything else to mention in my concept. Yeah. So like I said, if it's too complicated, come up with the simple version of the idea, which is just the frosted glass look without any of the floating element and stuff like that. And then what happens is that if you get a test winner, let's say that the test ran and it was 8% improvement, you can now go to your CEO and say, listen, on an annual basis, this product drives this much in sales. Our test was an 8% improvement. I believe we can make it 12% better. We can make it 12, essentially 12% conversion rate. And here is how I plan to do it. And then you can propose these more complicated ideas and then get buy-in. As a CRO, you're always trying to balance complexity and difficulty versus impact. And most of the time, the complexity is a factor that affects impact. So I always like to come up with the simplest version of an idea to prove a hypothesis, and then use that success to get buy-in from the team, get more investments from the team, do bigger projects. So I think that was my first concept.
Yeah, one thing I want to add to what you just said is that, one thing you can definitely start with, like a sort of like minimal viable test. So not make it like super complicated right away. But another thing that you could do is you could actually, let's say you want to swipe exactly what Rishi is suggesting to do for your own DTC brand. What you could do is you could actually send this brief to your developer and ask how long it would take to code up that test. And then based on that and the other like test that you have in the pipeline, you would adjust that test in terms of like priority, because maybe this to code up this test is going to take, I don't know, 40 hours, let's say, right? So in terms of priority is going to be a little bit below compared to like other tests that might be faster. So like, even if it sounds too complicated, just ping your dev or whoever is coding up the test and ask, how long do you think it's going to take for you to code up this test? And based on that, just like add that in your whatever prioritization framework you're using. So you add the hours, and then based on that, the idea will go up or down in the priority list.
Or come up with just think of an even simpler way. Never lose sight of the core hypothesis. The core hypothesis is that if we can get people to spend more time reading the content, that is the fundamental truth. Now, how you design it, I don't care. Like, I'm just giving you one interpretation of that design. You can do it 10 other ways, but that core hypothesis is the thing that's where the opportunity is.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Cool. Let's talk about my second idea. So
before we even start with your segment idea, again, guys, do subscribe, do comment. Go ahead.
Thank you. So let's talk about, I don't know why it's showing washable here. What did I do that it's showing washable? One second, let me refresh this really quick. Okay, so let's talk about still the mobile view. So before we go into the screen, actually, there's a few things I want to show you about the reviews mining that I've done. So as always, I analyze a bunch of reviews straight from the website that customers have left. And here's my spreadsheet that basically like categorizes all the different categories and topics of the insights I gathered from the reviews. So we have one tab called benefits. And here, as always, I put the list of all the benefits that customers have said to have received from the shoes. And there's a lot of things that they've said about the shoes. You know, they're comfy, I love the style, they fit very well. You know, they're very warm because obviously they're made of wool. I get a lot of compliments from friends, girlfriend, parents, blah, blah. So there's a lot of kind of like different benefits that people have mentioned. So what I would do is, you know, I'm sure a lot of these benefits are actually benefits that people and users care about when they evaluate the product page. But what I would do is I would actually run a post-purchase survey to the people that just bought. So you can trigger that on the, for example, thank you page. You can have like a modal where you're asking, you know, a bunch of like open-ended questions. Or you can simply, let's say you're on Shopify, you have Klaviyo, you can have a segment in Klaviyo that sends out that survey 30 minutes after a person purchases. And what I would do is I would ask a question as the following. What is the most important kind of like product attribute, shoe attribute that you care about that maybe you purchase, you know, this pair of shoes? What I'm trying to understand here is among, you know, all bunch of benefits that people have claimed here that they love the product for, what really mattered to the customer the most? And let's say we come up with like, I don't know, you know, 10 different benefits, right? So then what I would do is I would send another follow-up survey where now let's say, showcase the top 4 or 5 benefits. Now what I'm asking the user is to actually put a grade of importance from, let's say, 1 to 5 of each attribute. And based on that, now we have the top, you know, 2, 3, 4 most important attributes. So now I know that those are the attributes that most of people care about. And what I would do is I would basically replace these 3 attributes that they kind of showcase here in the wall runner highlights. So warm and cozy, cushion, midsole gives wear all day support, and machine washable, with those 3 most important benefits. And then, you know, as you can see here, you know, they're kind of like, I'm not saying copy focused and heavy, but you know, there's text, maybe people don't fully read each one of them. So what I would do is I would actually make this, I would add a visual to show the benefit that is being highlighted in the copy. And if you want, you can even add like a little link that says see more details next to the copy, for example. And when clicking on it, maybe you have, again, the same visual or a different visual and more copy that goes into the benefits and ties in the attribute with the benefit and even like the outcome. So for example, oh, the style is amazing. And because of the style, I get a lot of compliments from family, girls, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, that's all I got for this idea, Rishi.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Let's move on to next concept.
What do you have next? I'm excited to see your second one.
Okay.
Oh, cool. All right.
So this is something that I talk about in every episode, and it's something that I think is actually really, really important, is communicating expertise. One of the things
that's why you're talking about it in every single episode, because
that's right.
It has to go into people's brain, the importance of showing off expertise, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And what I noticed in the case of Allbirds is actually one of the challenges that we have as copywriters and as marketers is how do we balance out different attributes? Sometimes brands talk about, here are 50 things that we are amazing about. And that's a problem because nobody's amazing at 50 things. Sometimes they overemphasize a certain detail. And because of that, unfortunately, they have to underemphasize another detail. What I think Allbirds has done is they have decided, for very practical reasons, that they really feel, and they must have done surveys to ask their customers, and they must have responded and said, the fact that you are a eco-conscious brand is something that's really important to me as a buyer. And therefore, they've decided to really focus in on sustainability. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, they have naturally de-emphasized their discussion around performance. And I agree with their general thinking, but as a CRO, I'm trying to think about how do I go after niches of users that are coming to my website that are being underserved. So I kind of like just logically, again, I don't, as you guys know, that I don't do any user research. I just come up with my own segments. So I came up with 3 segments for types of people that are actually coming to their brand page. The first one are people who care about sustainability. It's very obvious to me that sustainability is an important theme. So that's one group of people that are coming in. The second group of people are people who don't care about sustainability. So just the opposite of that group. And the third group, the most important group, is people who care about sustainability, but don't want to compromise performance. And to me, this third group, so the first group has already been taken care of. The second group, the brand doesn't give a shit about. The brand doesn't care about because they are a sustainability brand, right? So if someone comes to them and says, I don't care about sustainability, well, then you're my customer. But the third group is, I think, the battleground, because these people are being underserved, because there's really nothing on this page that demonstrates sustainability without compromising performance. And so my thought was, how do I, first of all, connect with these buyers and then show them a sales pitch that actually addresses their concerns? So what I did was I decided to find a location to talk about performance. And I chose to talk about performance in the section where they're talking about sustainability, because this is where the question comes up. So if you scroll down, Lorenzo, so their sustainability section, I've just modified it. You'll notice that after the first block of text, I've added center aligned a hyperlink. It says, with so much focus on sustainability, what about shoe performance? So a couple of things are happening here. Number one is that when the user is reading about sustainability, this is when their question comes up, like, okay, these guys really care about this carbon stuff, but what if, because we've all bought products where it's like, okay, this is very eco-friendly, but it's not very good performance. And so that's when the question comes up. So I need to address that concern here. But notice another thing that I've done. This was a very important choice. You'll notice that I didn't make this link into a button, and I didn't make it stand out too much, because I wanted to play a second, UI hierarchy is really important. I don't want this link or this call to action to dominate this section, because the section is about sustainability. So what I did was I just center aligned it. So visually it just stands out a little bit. And I want the user to notice it after they've read that first paragraph. So that was the whole idea behind it. And when you click on the link, we haven't made a mock-up for it. But when you click on the link, we actually show our sales pitch for, how we've been able to not sacrifice performance. Now, the thing is that we'll really focus on performance over here, because who's clicking on this link? The person who's saying that I care about performance. So that's the idea. That's it.
I muted it a little bit myself because there's an alarm going off in the building next to my house. Can you hear it by any chance?
No.
Okay, fantastic. Cool. Let's talk about my third one. So actually my third one, I called it Bits and Bops, simply because it's a mix of ideas. I didn't really have it.
It's a variety show.
Exactly. I think Bits and Bobs is it's a British term. I don't think it's used in the US. But they're more like few considerations, and I would say one idea as well. So let's talk about the colors. So a few things I actually noticed. So this is the mobile view, and we see right away that they have this like classics, true black, which is the name of the color that has been selected. And we see that there's like 7, 14, 16 different colors, right? Now, what I noticed is that the first thing, if we go in the desktop view, we actually have the limited edition. So somehow in the desktop, they break down the colors into sections. So to me, that's interesting. I would actually want to understand how this is changing the behavior of the users. So I would want to understand how the percentage of each color is in terms of purchases for mobile and desktop, because I wonder really how this limited edition is having an impact on people, because that tells me like, oh my God, limited edition, like, oh, it caused the kind of like, oh, you're going to be one of the few ones to have it, right? So there's a psychological message from Cialdini, I would say, that the whole unicity concept that plays. So I would love to kind of like understand a little bit more data about that. But going back to the mobile view, one question I had when I looked at the different colors that they have is, well, what's the conversion rate of each color? Because what if I land on this page and I see this color and I don't like the black shoes because maybe I'm a fan of the red shoes, but because I don't interact with the color, I don't look at the amazing shoes right away. So what I would look at the conversion rate of each color, just because then I would run a test that instead of showing this color by default, I would want to test showing the color by default that has the highest conversion rate, right?
Exactly.
Because I think, showing the color, that the default color is probably going to have any impact. So that's the bits and bobs idea one. The second one is, one thing that I noticed, again, looking at Ahref, is that we have around 4,000 people that every month search in Google for this keyword, how to wash old birds. And again, we don't know if this is a post-purchase or a pre-purchase keyword, because maybe during the decision-making process, people are like, oh, because it's made of wool, I wonder what the washing process looks like. So, and they do have a section here in the wool runner highlights where they talk about it, and then they talk about it a little bit in the care guide. So what I would want to, and again, this is just an hypothesis, is based on Ahref mainly, but what it's telling me is that people do care about understanding how they can wash this type of shoes, right? So what I would do is I would make this section a little bit more prominent, because again, it's a little bit here, so people might miss it. it's hidden within a drop-down. So a lot of people might not click on the drop-down and read the copy here. And also it's kind of like wall of text. Maybe not everybody is a digger and reads word by word or line by line. So what I would do is I would either like add a visual, not hidden under a drop-down, or you can even have a video, a sort of like before and after video. Because I remember reading some voice of the customer reviews, and somebody was saying, oh, I love these shoes because they're washable. And actually, the first time I washed them, they looked like they were completely brand new. And a pair of shoes, of wool shoes that I had in the past, when I put them in the washing machine, they came out and they were completely ruined, right? So I wonder how many people have bought other wool shoes, and when washing them, they got a little bit ruined. So what I would do is I would create a sort of like before and after video where here's the shoes, they're all dirty. Here's how they look like brand new, which is already something that you can gather from like UGC or straight from the product images. Then here's the dirty shoes that I've consumed. I'm gonna put it in the washing machine. Here's how they still like look like new after washing them, to again lower that concern and their objection that people might have around, oh, I'm afraid that washing the shoes are gonna ruin my shoes. But you know, using the video lowers those anxieties completely.
Awesome. Love it.
What you got?
All right. So if you go back to the image on the right and you just open it up to the desktop version, I want to show some users something that there's a design choice. So if you scroll down to the review section, they actually have a very useful widget that I've actually never seen before. So here they actually have because they have 2,600 reviews, you can search by search term, you can search by star rating, you can search by, actually there are too many options. But one of the things that I really liked was the last option, which is the activity level. If you just click on that and just show the drop down. So I thought that this is a really, really important criteria, because people buy shoes for very specific reasons. And if I have to read reviews, I'm really interested in reading reviews of other people that are using it for those same set of reasons, because I'm more persuaded by their opinions. Now, if you go to the mobile version of this page, and if you click on filter by, which first of all, I would argue that people would not intuitively figure out that filter by is one of the methods to get to this part. But if you just go to,
sorry, I had to refresh it because the filters were not working correctly.
Okay. Now, if you look at the filters, if you scroll right to the bottom, is that just 3, 4? Yeah. Oh, there is activity level. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't notice it. Okay, I didn't notice it. So actually this kind of somewhat negates my concept, but I still have a concept to talk about. So yeah, if you just go back to that page. So yeah, go back to my page. Sorry. Yep. So it says filter by. So one of the things that I'd be really curious to know is how many people are actually using that filter mechanism. I just don't think that the filter by is clear enough. So in my concept, what I've done is I've just changed the copy, and I don't think this is a great copy, but it simply says, see reviews that most match you. I think we can come up with much better copy for it, but my hypothesis is that more people will click on it. And if I can get more people to click on it, that filter option of selecting by activity level will show up. So that was just my third idea, is to make sure that, because the reviews really, really matter. And if we can if we can nudge more people to read reviews by other people that are similar to them, it's just better than going through 2,600 random reviews.
I have to confess, when I looked at the review section, I completely missed that filter. I saw the different filters, but that one I completely missed it. I just discovered it right now, and there's something I want to show you, because again, activity level is something that they capture, and I actually want to show you guys the way they display the reviews in the desktop. So they have this section. They have this section here, activity level, where they just put like around the house, blah blah, right? Now what I noted, what I created in my reviews mining section is actually a tab called context, where it's basically like customers in the reviews content, because this data, the data around the activity level is not something I recorded in my reviews mining analysis. But what this context list is people using words in the reviews and mentioning where they're actually using the shoes, right? And as you can see, there's a lot of matching between what people say in the reviews and obviously like the activity level that they mentioned here. So, there's at work, I'm on my feet the whole day. So I use these shoes on when I'm, every day when I'm on my feet. Around the city, running errands, when traveling, or business casual environment. Again, you can tell there's a matching between the analysis that I've done in my reviews mining, which is like the words that people have used when reviewing the product, and the activity level that they recorded here. Cool. I think
Awesome.
this is it.
Awesome. Well, then that concludes our episode. We hope you were able to pick up a few actionable insights. Write a comment to us and tell us about what ideas that we're talking about that you think you'll be able to maybe test and develop on your own, or maybe your own interpretation. Because, when Lorenzo and I share notes, we oftentimes are like, oh my God, based on this, we kind of riff off each other's ideas. And we're like, what if we were to do this? So we'd like to encourage you guys to comment back to us and tell us how you would actually improve some of these, because there's always room for improvement. We only spend a little bit of time, working on these. And a lot of these are like just thought experiments that we are kind of sharing with you guys. So there's always room for improvement. So thank you for joining us today. And we will see you with another big, interesting DTC brand very soon.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Ciao.